Welcome to Commander Central, episode 87, and today we are going to get a little philosophical and talk about the things we do and don't do in a game regarding the philosophy of fun. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Welcome to Commander Central, everybody, and how are you two doing today?
It's almost Friday.
I'm feeling that. The weather's kind of not miserably cold out, so I'm kind of getting some spring energy in my step a little bit. But we're getting 13 inches of snow this weekend, so that optimism is perhaps short-lived on my part. Any fun games anyone played this weekend?
No.
You played a couple.
They
You played
were not
games.
fun.
I played one with you, and I played one with Max.
You played quite a few with me.
A couple, at least a couple with you.
I had fun. I don't know what your guys' problem was.
So I'll mention one Max game. He had Brago out, but I got an early Spellskite out and was able to keep a lot of Brago triggers in check.
Yep.
Unfortunately, everyone else, I don't know if they weren't entirely aware of how effective that was, because once I lost that Spellskite, things went downhill very rapidly.
And I'm still perplexed on, I've asked you why you let me get rid of the Spellskite.
So at one point you went to Detention Sphere,
So there was a perplexing chimera
that's what it was.
in play during this game.
which was slowing up everything
Yep.
because no one wanted to cast something good and lose it to the Chimera.
It was holding me back immensely.
So you went to Detention Sphere the Chimera.
And you switched the target to Spellskite.
So here's why. I had a board wipe in my hand. I think it was All Is Dust.
Yeah, it was. I remember that.
So my thought process there was, okay, well, I'm gonna lose stuff anyway here. It actually wasn't. It was just a damnation. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna lose my Spellskite anyway when I cast this damnation when it goes around the board. So I might as well keep the Chimera up, get something with it the next time somebody casts a mana rock or an enchantment that I can take that would survive the damnation. And who cares what Spellskite at that point anyway? So I moved the target over to the Spellskite. It went away, keeping me the Chimera, thinking I could then get some value out of it before I board wiped. No one cast anything worth taking with the Chimera for the next 3 turns. And then somebody finally went to do a Vandal Blast.
And you took control of it because you're running your artifact
Right,
deck.
at that point I'm like, oh, I might as well just take the Vandal Blast and survive that, and then I'll Damnation next turn.
And I let the Chimera trigger resolve, and then I countered.
Counterspelled.
I rewinded the overloaded Vandal Blast.
And then at that point there was no board wipe, enough things had happened. I was so far behind, so that's why I let it go. But it did work when it was out there anyway.
That Chimera slowed me down so much, and even the Spellskite did, stopping Brago from blinking himself.
Right.
More than anything else on the board, because I didn't have that big of a board presence early on in the game.
But then once the Chimera was gone and
Yes.
the Spellskite was gone, it was just you played 3 mana rocks and
Right.
Whirler Rogue and I don't even remember what else.
I think Venzer was the final
and then
nail in the
also
coffin.
you're drawing 4 cards a turn and have almost unlimited mana, and it was just that was bad.
I mean, I was very transparent. I said, guys, I know I'm digging for a Stronic Resonator because I have a piece in my hand that will let me go infinite and win the game. And at that point, it was down to me and one other. And she was just like, nope, I just want to play again. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Now, I heard this mentioned, but I didn't hear the full story. Somebody screwed up an Umezawa's Jit in one of your games, Chris.
Yes, I did.
Was that you? So what did you do?
I decided to cast a Wrath of God, 2 counters on my Jet.
Okay.
Max had a Yeheni Undying Partisan out. Sacked a creature to her to make her indestructible. I wasn't even thinking, oh, yeah, whatever. So it's still just going to be whatever, 1/1 or a 2/2. Like, oh, yeah, and then all the death triggers go off. And I end up losing to that Yeheni.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
it was a 2020 Yeheni by the end of the game.
Well, I similarly screwed up a Jit in a game after Max left. We were playing a kind of a plane chase, so we had the cards flipping up in the middle. I had gotten 4 counters in my Jit and passed the turn, and I was probably going to be able to win the following swing back around to me. But what I did was I had an Alhelmret's Archive out, which doubles the amount of cards you draw and doubles the life you gain. So with 4 counters in Jit, normally I would gain 8 life, doubled with Archive to 16. So I kind of got fixated on that, thinking, okay, anybody who swings at me, if I need to, I can just gain 16 life. That no one probably is factoring in right now because they're not doing the math on that.
Right.
So I'm perfectly safe. So I will I pass the turn. Well, the guy that's next has a 4/4 dragon in play, and again, I'm like, I'm not going to take lethal damage from that dragon. I was at 20. I can gain 16. I'll be fine. I can't even remember what the plane we were on was or what he rolled to, but it gave his creature double strike, and he dropped a Kessig Wolf Run. So he pumped the dragon up, swung with double strike damage, and then finished with an extra combat step. So he was able to get through even with the Jit life gain. He was able to deal the 36 damage.
Wow.
However, I could have just killed the 4/4 dragon because I had 4 counters on Jit. I could have just removed all 4 and given it -4/-4. But I got tunnel visioned on, I can gain 16 life, I'll be fine. And then I completely forgot about the other modes for the next 2 minutes, which is one of those things you kind of do when you're playing a situation. Like once you start thinking about it, you just kind of tunnel vision. At least I do tunnel vision out, and that's totally what I did in that game. And then Chris and I played a game with the shop owner.
That was a worthless game.
Did he get more than 3 lands?
Oh, yeah.
He did. We got wrecked. Was it in back-to-back turns even with 2 different Bolus ults?
Yeah, he ulted 1 Bolus, a Knight of Fairies protection to protect myself.
Chris survived the first Bolus ult because he had Doubling Season out.
Okay.
And both Boluses can auto-ult with Doubling Season in play. So he played that, dropped the first Bolus, and Chris saved himself from that, and I lost every non-land permanent that was in play.
Oh, no.
And Chris is thinking, all right, I'm all right.
Yeah, I was like, this is good.
And then it comes back around and he drops another Bolus, I forget which one it was, that he auto-ults, that hit Chris's full hand, discarded his hand.
Sacrifice 7 permanents, deal 7 damage, discard 7 cards.
So at that point, we were both just pretty hosed. And actually, because he still died first. Mm-hmm. And then it was down to you and I, and we just, that was it was coin flip at that point. Whoever...
Yeah. I let you go too long of just restabilizing.
Well, and then what I realized after that, I also was screwing that game up. I had Archive out again. It was my Recce deck. Mm-hmm. And then I played Guardian Project, which lets you draw a card whenever you draw a creature. So I was trying to, chain into some way to win the game. So I'm like, okay, I'll play a creature. I can draw a card off Recce, draw an extra one off Archive, and then draw one off Guardian Project. But I should have drawn 2 off Guardian Project because Archive isn't just draw an extra card. It draws an extra card when you draw an extra card.
Right.
So actually, I did wind up winning it, but it should have been much easier. I should have been able to draw 5 or 6 more cards.
He's not mentioning the fact that he missed Sylvan Library for the first 4 turns that it was.
I did miss it for 4. I missed it for 2. I played it fast, and it was early too. It wasn't
really early.
It wasn't like it was turn 12 when there's a lot going on. I played it on turn 2, and then promptly missed it on turn 3. Which is really, but I didn't have Archive out then. In my defense. And then Library was gone before I played Archive. But were there any MVP cards anyone saw this week? Anything jump out at anybody?
I'm going to say Terrain Generator for myself.
Oh, nice. What deck is that in? Is that your Regnan Krav deck?
It is in my Regnan Krav deck, and I helped Chris out by making sure he got his land tax triggers every time I used it.
Yep. Sure.
But I mean, in Orzhov, you don't have much ramp, and when you draw...
Don't have much ramp, but you have plenty of draw, which is what that card needs.
I had a Phyrexian Arena out. That was my turn 3. My turn 4 was Terrain Generator, knowing I had a bunch of basics in my hand. I'm like, okay, I don't have much to do. Let's just hold up mana and drop a land before my next turn.
Yeah, I like Terrain Generator a lot. That's a really good card that probably doesn't see enough play. That Perplexing Chimera definitely did work in that game we were in, just slowing things up.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't make for a fun game, but it's effective.
It made me play some of the toughest Magic I've played in a very long time, which I appreciate.
It makes you really have to think about the decisions you're making, for sure.
I just jam stuff into it.
Well, that's true though. At some point, it's one of those cards where, if someone plays a Punisher, Perilous. What am I thinking of? The enchantment, the black green Pernicious Deed. At some point, Pernicious Deed, you can't just be held hostage to it. You just have to say, okay, well, blow it up or don't. But I'm not going to sculpt my turns around it for 5 straight turns. So yeah, it does. You are maybe better off just forcing it once in a while. I'll say Constant Mists. I won a game on Mina and Den deck. It's not ban worthy, but it's too good, I think. If you draw that, there are plenty of times when you draw that in a certain deck where you're like, well, you're never ever going to get through.
It's a soft lock.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Me too.
Well,
we'll talk about that later.
Okay, all right. But you're right, it is. In that game, I eventually did draw my Life from the Loam, so it was definitely a soft lock. But even if it wasn't, even if it didn't have Life from the Loam in that deck, I can sacrifice lands. It was turn 14. I was in a land ramp deck, so I had at least 14 lands out. I mean, even if I never draw another land, and that wasn't going to happen, if I draw a land every third turn and don't do any recursion, it's going to take you 25 turns to cut through that.
Yeah.
Particularly when it's down to 1v1 at that point in the game, and it was. You just can't beat that. If you're not playing blue and you can't counterspell it for the most part, you are in real trouble. If you're relying on combat damage.
Who needs combat damage?
Fair point. Speaking of combat damage and not needing it, I just finished today my Kresh deck that I'll be able to try out next week.
Very nice.
It has no combat damage plans at all. It's all fling stuff. So I want to see if I can actually make that work.
I'm going to sit down and play Mogus with you.
Jund fling. I'm fine with that.
It's going to be
the
awesome.
more stuff dies and gets sacrificed, I'm good with that.
Everyone's going to be like losing life. You're going to be like, oh, fling and kill you, and fling and kill you.
Yep, that'd be great. Yeah. So, yeah, who does need combat damage? Well, if you want to find any of these cool cards we just talked about, where would you do that, Max?
Head over to flipsidegaming.com and use promo code CMDR in all caps, and you'll get 10% off your order, $10 or more.
And if you want to tell us what any cool games you played or any cards that would be good for our decks or just anything at all, you can find us on social media.
Yep, you can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. Search us up on Facebook, CMDR Central. Find us on YouTube, searching CMDR Central. And you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com. You can also find us on iTunes. Leave us a 5-star review if you think we're worth it. I did want to point out the thing that we received from I do believe it was a nice gentleman who said that our volume was quite low this week.
Yep.
And I appreciate those reviews that people give us.
Yeah, if there's something wrong with the actual quality of the show, let us know. We will endeavor to fix that ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yeah, keep those coming. We strive to do our best for everyone that's listening. So
Absolutely. And we also can be found on Patreon.
We can. Head over to patreon.com/CMDR Central. Check out our reward tiers. We're going to be maybe modifying those in the near future, adding some new levels. But go over there, support us if you'd like. You get entry into our chat on Slack to talk spoilers, deck construction, or just general nonsense.
Yep, there's a lot of people there that'll talk to you. Everyone but me.
Right,
Very
yes.
true.
Well, speaking of Patreon and contests, I think we have some contest winners we can actually announce.
We have 4 different contest winners to announce today.
That's ridiculous.
Chris is trying to do the math in his head right now on why.
I don't remember.
We'll just leave it to you, Max, because I believe you have all this
getting old.
information.
So we're going to start out with the monthly drawings from last month, the winners. So for Patreon, we're giving away 3 packs of Ultimate Masters. And the winner of that is Patreon supporter Blake Carbone. So thank you, Blake. We'll get in contact with you for a mailing address. We'll get those out in the mail in the coming days here. For our Twitter, the Foil Peel Sunforger Altar done by Rafael Garcia. We want to say thank you to everybody who retweeted all of those weekly tweets. We had 350 retweets
Dang.
between 4 weeks of posts.
That's serious.
I'm going to have to turn off notifications on my Twitter now, too, like I did on Slack.
And of those 350 retweets, the winner of that is Angelo, Senate Guild Mage, and he can be found at The Just Guy.
Oh, I believe he just started writing for EDH Rec.
Well, that's awesome.
I don't think he has a new article out yet, but I think he just started as a writer there in the last couple weeks. I've seen him talking about that as well. So, hey, congratulations, and
I'll have
read
to look up his
Yeah.
topics. And
I don't even know what he's
troll.
writing about, but yeah, right.
like
for sure.
I troll you with your
For
topics.
sure.
Now, we have to move on to the Patreon stretch goal contest.
All right.
So we're giving away to 2 lucky people. One's getting a From the Vault Angels, and one is getting a From the Vault Transform.
Oh, I forgot that we are already there at this already.
Yes.
Wow. All right.
Now we got to figure out a new stretch goal
Okay.
because we're well over 100 now.
Dang. All right.
So the From the Vault Angels winner is Seaburn Vicer. I know I mispronounced that. And I've met him, and he's going to give me a lot of crap for that. So congratulations, Seab. You get the From the Vault Angels.
Nice.
The winner of the From the Vault Transformed is Thomas Menard.
Oh, nice.
So congratulations to both of you. We will get in contact, get your addresses, and we'll get those mailed out in the coming days.
For sure. I know
Have fun
both
with the
those
inch of
names.
dust.
Yeah, absolutely. The bonus inch of dust on Chris's From the Vault. Well, cool. Excellent. We will give those away, get those sent out in the next week or so, and I think next week we will probably have a couple new contests we can announce as well.
We already have our new contest.
What?
Yeah, we announced them last week, Dana.
Oh, that's right. We did. Man, I didn't take notes. I didn't write that down.
You're getting old like me.
Well, why don't you refresh both the listeners and myself as to what those contests would be?
Yeah, so for Patreon, we are giving away a sealed Yidris Maelstrom Wielder Precon,
Okay.
donated by a friend of the show, Lucas. Go, you say it because I'm going to screw it up again.
Filippiak.
Filippiak. Yep. Lucas Flapjack.
Lucas Flapjack. There we go.
So as long as you are a current supporter or become a supporter by the end of March, you'll be entered in to win that.
Now, isn't Flippiak the homunculus from Ravnica who you like see in the Lost cards, with the big eye?
I don't know. I just remember Odun and Zindersplit
Okay.
from Battle Bond.
One thing I think we have established is that the homunculuses, when they're named, they don't have vowels in their names.
Ugh.
They've officially established that in the lore. On no matter what plane they're on, homunculuses don't have vowels in their names.
Pretty soon it's just going to be like webdings. We're going to get like smiley
Right.
face, beer can, hashtag.
That would be fantastic.
And then for Facebook this month, we're not doing Twitter. We're doing a Facebook
Okay.
giveaway. We're giving away a stack of Plane Chase playing cards to maybe start playing Plane Chase EDH with your group.
So you too can get blown up by a 4/4 dragon that deals 36 damage to you in one turn when you think you can heal through it.
Yep. So we'll be posting that contest weekly on Facebook. A like, a comment, and a share will get you entries.
Excellent.
And then next week, I'll actually post the pictures of what cards you're getting.
Okay. Well, speaking of contests, there's a semi-contest going on I want to ask you two about involving Planeswalker decks, Superfriends decks. So where is that project at so far? Give me some updates.
I have decided on my 2 other creatures I get to run.
Okay.
Ooh.
I have chosen Clever Impersonator.
Me too.
Which coincidence? Because it copies a Planeswalker.
Yep.
And Notion Thief.
Ooh.
Really?
Yep. I hope it's going to shut down some of the blue Planeswalkers you may or may not be running for draw effects.
He told me that, and my response was, I'm on a white. I don't draw cards anyway. I'm not worried about it. Not going to stop me.
I have Arena Rector and Clever Impersonator. I need to find one more.
Nice.
So that's where you're at. You have your creatures done, and this is all going to be finished by the end of the month.
Yep. I have my WinCon picked out,
Okay.
but I'll reveal that later
Okay.
That might be the last thing we reveal is our win cons.
All right.
because mine is wonderful.
Yeah, it is. I have yet to figure mine out.
Well, it certainly must be better than mine, which is hopefully make Elspeth tokens when I have a procession out. That's what I hope mine is. All right, good. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing those decks in action. Let's talk about having fun, since this is a fun show. This is a subject that was kind of sparked by a couple things going back several months. The first of which was an article Sheldon Menery wrote for Star City Games back in October titled Commander Cards You Shouldn't Play. And we'll throw that link out there in some show notes on Twitter or something in case you didn't read it back in the day. It was semi-controversial, I think, just because maybe some people also didn't read it before getting mad. He really wasn't saying don't run these cards. His kind of point was, these are cards I don't run because I don't think they're fun. And he even admitted in the article that it was kind of a clickbait title. So people kind of got mad without really needing to get mad about it.
Millennials.
Clickbait works, man. It works.
It absolutely does work. There's a reason everyone uses it. The second thing, there was a post this week on Twitter from Sam of Ristic Studies fame. And I'm not going to read that. We will link that as well, where he just wrote like a 3 or 4 paragraph thing about what his philosophy of EDH is, basically saying the most important line is kind of the first one, where he says it's a format in which your opponent's well-being is a non-zero factor for deck building, which is not a thing that anyone cares about in other formats. Like when you're playing Standard or Legacy or anything, basically you're winning the game. Like that's what your primary concern is. What your opponent is doing or how much they enjoy what you're doing just isn't a factor. And it is, at least for some people in Commander. I'm not saying it is for everybody. And you guys are going to maybe tell me that you don't care about that. But that was Sam's point, that he does care about that. So that kind of made me think about this. And the third thing was, we've joked enough on here about Max being a scumbag, playing certain combos.
He half a comboed me this week.
Did he?
Only half.
It's still half the bad half.
I killed 2 people with it.
That's which one was it?
Technically, you died to Yahenni.
So
Phil died to Sanguine Bond.
Well, that's only half of it. You're fine. You're fine.
It took a Vault of the Archangel to make it all happen, too.
That seems perfectly fine to me. But we've joked about that before. We talked about like how I don't want to play Torment of Hailfire, and I kind of wring my hands about that. So that kind of all plays into the same thing. So let's talk about this. And the first thing I'll ask is, kind of like Sam's philosophy he started that article with, is there an overarching idea you have in mind when you build a deck? based on like what you want the play experience to be.
So when I build a deck, no, I don't think about my opponents for the most part.
Okay.
Like, I think I just have some ground rules for myself, which we've talked about on here. Like, I'm not a fan of mass land destruction or dirtily combos. I'm okay
Okay.
with like the instant combos like Blood Bond, or I think in Brago I can infinite Sun Titan strip mine lock everybody.
Mass land destruction.
It takes, you can interrupt that though. That's not like but no, I don't, when I'm building a deck, I don't think about, well, how is this going to feel to play against it
Okay.
for the most part.
How about you, Chris? You're the more competitive of the three of us.
I don't care if my opponents are having fun or not.
So you don't like that's not a
Nope.
concern for you with the deck you build.
I build a deck that has a strategy in mind.
Okay.
We'll go with my Mogus deck, for instance. It's mainly meant to do damage to multiple people at once.
Simultaneously, as
Yep.
much every
long-
turn.
Yep.
In a way you can't escape.
As long as I'm doing my strategy, that's all I care about.
Okay.
The deck is successful to me as long as it did what I wanted it to do.
Okay. I actually do that. I actually have the thought of, is this going to be a fun experience to play against, particularly for a stranger or someone I don't know that well. I don't worry about my friends that much because, number one, they're more likely to not care about that kind of thing because they're your friends. Your friends will forgive you for things that somebody else might not. So I do think about that's true, like, maybe not a blood bond combo, but something less scumbaggy than that.
How about
he-
getting stabbed in the back by Tajik after you had an agreement
still
to a
hasn't-
peace treaty?
Chris is still not forgiven that.
6 years later, folks. 6 years later.
So I want it to be a fun experience for my opponent, and I want it to be an interesting experience. I want them to like see something they haven't seen before. That matters to me. It matters for two reasons. Number one, I want them to enjoy the game, and number two, if I'm being honest, it also kind of strokes my own ego. If they see something interesting, I like being the person that creates an interesting deck. So if I'm being honest, it's not entirely about them. It's also by doing that for them, it also makes me feel whatever. So that does something for me. It's not entirely me being altruistic. It has some self-serving portion to it.
Says the guy who constant mislocks people.
I-
being undead.
Well, that's the point. That's the one, and I run it in that deck, but I don't run it anywhere else. And I feel like that's a deck that's a landfall deck that has a lot of synergy, so I'd run it there. But you are not mistaken putting constant miss in a green deck. Like for the most part, that's
No.
never a wrong call. And I intentionally don't run it anywhere else because it's such a strong card that leads to kind of a miserable locked experience for the game. The second thing I kind of bear in mind is I want my opponents to be able to play their deck to a degree. I'm not saying I don't want to stop them from doing things. I will try to stop them whenever possible, but I want them to have the opportunity to do things. That also kind of serves two purposes. It's interesting for them, like if you don't get to play your deck, that's not a lot of fun, generally speaking. And the second one is, and this is also the self-serving part, you don't have any excuses then. If you played your deck and I beat you, you can't say, oh, that back to basics came down and locked me out of the game, or you hit my hand, otherwise I would have had you. I can just say, no, I just beat you. So there's also an ego component to that too, where you got outplayed. And that to me is also, so it's not just me being altruistic when I say I want you to be able to play your deck. I want you to be able to play your deck and then have it lose to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I want my opponents to be able to play their own decks.
And it's not only that. Like I'm saying, it's definitely both too. I want you to have good time, but I also want myself to be able to have that extra thing too. So I'm not. I want to make sure you realize I'm not acting like I'm Santa Claus here.
Dana just said, Chris, you were the most competitive out of all of us, but I really feel like Dana might be the most competitive out of all of us.
In a
after what he
different
just
way,
said.
maybe. I mean, it's in a different way.
I just want to win all the time. That's what I heard.
But I want you. No, I want you to lose to me. Maybe that's different. But I want you to have a
Okay.
chance to lose to me. I don't know.
I actually don't feel like I'm that competitive on a Tuesday night compared to
You
any
are.
other
You
night.
aren't. I don't think you are.
I have more fun. I'm just laid back because I'm actually get to play the
I
game
would
that
say
I love to play.
I just mean like in a general sense, you're probably more competitive. But like in EDH, I don't think you have any problem shutting that off.
Right.
I've never ever thought that about you when you play. Okay, so how about are there things you don't do, or are there cards you won't play, or things you won't do in a game?
Blood
in terms
button
of
combo.
obviously you wouldn't do that because you're not a sociopath. We assumed you wouldn't do that. Some people would do
It's going to
that.
show up in Animachu, isn't it?
No, we agreed. No
We
no
did.
cheesy combos
We
like
did
that.
agree on that.
So okay, how about that? So what other things we want? You mentioned mass land destruction. Max doesn't like that. Is there a reason for that? Why is that one of the things you don't do?
Just bad experiences in the past of people, doing it and then scooping because, this is the only way I can make an impact on the game because I'm going to lose next turn.
And I meant to say this before, so I'm going to interrupt you just briefly. I should have said this at the beginning. We're talking about things that we ourselves personally don't do, kind of like Sheldon did. This isn't a don't run mass land destruction, don't
Right.
prevent your opponent from playing. We're just talking about ourselves. If you agree or disagree, that's perfectly fine. We're not saying anyone should emulate us because I think we all have differing opinions too. We are just sharing our own personal thoughts on this. So mass land destruction, that's why you don't like it.
Yep. I mean, I'm all for the opinion of if you can do it and then win right away or within the next turn, great. Like, I've contemplated putting Armageddon into Dromoka and then only casting it when I have, like, Heroic Intervention in my hand. So I
Sure.
can save my stuff, win, and then
Well,
start
also,
a new game.
Dromoka's a big, evasive beater
Right.
that plenty of times is wearing a Blackblade Reforged or something. And if you Armageddon, even if you aren't going to win that turn, you're going to win in the next 3 turns that consist of your opponents going draw go, and you dome somebody and dome somebody and dome somebody, and the game's over.
Right. I don't know. I think there's a difference between I don't know how to phrase this. Like, I know my Brago deck can be a tad sluggish in certain points
Sure.
in a game. But I also know in that state how many turns it's going to take me to break through that pattern and win or lose versus someone who plays that mono blue 99 counterspell deck and just counters everything because, that's what I want to do.
I'll say this about your Brago deck. Even on those games where you are just doing value things on your turn and maybe not dealing damage or getting to the point where you're going to win, I never feel like it's dirtily. You might be taking a 3-minute turn while you figure out what your sequence of blinks is and then drawing 6 cards and then figuring out your discards. But I never feel like it isn't going somewhere. I just feel like, well, now I'm going to die in 3 turns. I don't know how yet, but you've gotten so much resource advantage that I know it's going to happen.
Right.
Versus I've seen those decks where someone's got a Paradox Engine out and they're doing Paradox Engine stuff, and I don't know where it's going. Like, I'm like, are you accomplishing anything with a ton of colorless mana and a deck that has no X spells or something? Because I've seen that a bunch of times in decks, and I never feel like your Brago deck is doing that.
Yeah, and I mean that could also just be I know the deck in and out.
Sure.
I've had it together for 3 years now. But no, I get it. Like, I try not to dirtle, and I know it is a deck that takes a tad bit longer turns, but you kind of know that when you play against it too.
How about you for Mass Land Destruction, Chris? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm perfectly fine with it.
Do you
as-
care if it's a win condition, or do you like fine with it just in general?
I'm fine with it just in general.
So you run it
As long
into
as
your
you're
decks.
not doing it, as Max brought up, where you're straight up, I'm going to wrath the board with this and then scoop.
Sure.
That's the difference.
Which
Right.
we've all seen before too.
Yep.
Like that's the thing
Well-
people do.
But let's say we'll go back to like Max talking about it in Dromoka. If he had just Dromoka out with or if Dromoka wasn't, with Mirari's Wake Out, taps all his lands, floats all that mana, Armageddon's the board, casts Dromoka with that floating mana, and then passes the turn, he's ahead of from everybody.
You'll never catch them. I mean,
Yeah.
conceivably, could you top deck a Plains and have a Swords to Plowshares in hand?
Yes.
I mean, yes, but like odds are you're just going to lose, and you're going to lose quickly probably because your turn's going to be like draw go, and like I said, Dromoka's just going to kill you before it matters.
Now, Obliterate or other things like that destroy everything, I'm not quite a fan of because all you're doing is just resetting the board. state.
Again, unless you maybe have a plan like you've got stuff that's Teferi's Protection out of play or something at the time or whatever.
Or you're playing all Planeswalkers or something, and you
Sure.
just take care of everything, and you have all your walkers sitting there. They're just going to take over the game.
Assuming they're ones that actually can take over the game.
Yeah. Jason Mind Sculptor.
Well, that's actually because I've thought about Armageddon in my Planeswalker deck before, but I'm like, it's still gonna be a slow slog before I win. There's like no situation where that's gonna be fast for the most part.
No, you need it in a deck that's actually got something to it. Mm-hmm. Like, I've been contemplating it. It's been going in and out of Alesha, I've yet to draw it whenever I play the deck. Just because when I'm so far ahead, it doesn't even matter. As long as I keep you off of everything, I can ping you to death with all the little tokens.
I will say one that I avoid is too many counter spells in blue, and I realize that too many is a relative term. Too many for one person is just enough for somebody else. For me, I don't like to go over 5 or 6 counter spells. I think I have 6 in my Sphinx deck, and I think I have 5 in Talrand.
I think the big thing about counterspells, though, with that people misjudge them, is they play cards like Cancel. Where
Sure.
as
Which
you've
is
said
great, which is
numerous
like one of the
times,
best cards
yeah,
in the format.
that cancel's not good, but your counterspell needs to do something else. Like
Sure.
Cryptic Command has 4 modes. Mystic Confluence has 4 modes. Things that do something else for you if you don't need the counterspell aspect.
Well,
of it.
a tempo hit in Modern, where you're casting a counterspell and stopping someone's thing, is a whole different thing than a tempo hit when the other 2 people don't get tempo hit.
Yep.
So counterspells are significantly worse in Commander than they are in other formats. But I also don't want to be the person in the game who's draw going on 8 mana and then sitting there in 3 counterspells and just keeping the game from progressing. I tend to use counterspells to stop someone else from winning or to stop myself from losing. And I don't think I need 20 counterspells to do that.
That's another thing I see a lot of people mistake with counterspells is they use it to counter anything. If I'm playing a counterspell deck, I want to stop that Wrath of God. I want to
Sure.
stop that Armageddon. Something like that. Something that's going to drastically change the board state and keep other people from doing anything.
I would love to see some statistics that showed someone with a counterspell in hand who passes their turn and see how often they counter something on the person immediately to their left. Because I would bet it would happen a shocking amount of times where they just immediately do the counter because they have one in hand. Or the opposite happens where it goes that person, and then it goes to the third person, and they hit them because they don't want to have it come back to their hand with the mana unspent. So like the best place to be against someone playing counters is the person directly across from them. I think that's where the safe spot is. But
I
that's,
agree.
That's probably neither here nor there.
Unless you're playing like a Gave deck or something like that.
You counter everything in that deck.
Right. How about board wipes? Like you definitely want to run board wipes in Commander, but do you guys ever think about a cap for that? Is that ever something you worry about?
4 max usually.
This kind of came up in our game we played with our shop owner, his Superfriends deck. 'Cause I think he's got like 12 or 14 or something.
But there's
in there.
a reason because he runs
It
no
makes sense.
creatures in the
It makes sense in that deck.
Yeah.
And my Zero deck would probably be a functionally better deck with 10 board wipes because I have almost no creatures. But it's a slow enough deck as it is. I don't need the game to take an extra 30 minutes because I'm Wrath of Godding every other turn.
Yep.
So that's a decision I've made in that deck to do something that's probably less optimal because I just don't want that to be a boring experience to play against.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a hard, fast rule for how many I run in a deck, but I make sure I run the ones that are the most mana efficient or do the most things. That's why, we talk about Merciless Eviction or Austere Command. We want those modular spells that can destroy multiple things versus just creatures or just artifacts. So I try to aim for those over anything versus just Wrath of God, which is still really good. I like Wrath of God.
Yeah, well,
Beautiful.
and you need to have a couple. I think you need to have a couple board wipes because then you have the opposite problem. No one wants to sit there with a locked board state either for 5 turns when no one can attack.
Yeah. I think it also comes down to when you cast it. I mean, you don't...
Sure.
If player 1 is playing a token deck and they're just swarming the board, yeah, you run a Wrath and you kill everything, and yeah, you might tick off opponents, 2 and 3, but you're helping them in the long run because guess what? They had 40 tokens and they probably have an Overwhelming Stampede or a Triumph of the Hordes in their hand, and we're all going to die. But I think it's the repetitive turn after turn casting wrath effects, even if it's only killing 1 or 2 things every turn, is what gets annoying and not fun for yourself and the table.
And there are some decks where that makes sense, like the Planeswalker deck. Like it makes sense in that deck to do that.
Because you're just protecting your walkers,
Yeah.
which are how you're going to win the game.
But it's also something that I just don't want to deal with that often.
See, I would be fine if people ran more board wipes. If they ran more of them, like Descend Upon the Sinful, or the 8 mana one that creates tokens with it.
Is it Hour
If you
of
have
Reckoning
Threshold
or something?
like
yeah.
that,
Yeah. Or
Where
like
you're
Martial
actually-
Coup.
Yeah, where
Yeah,
you're getting
yeah, yeah.
ahead
Sure.
by wrathing the board. You're actually sticking something to the board right after that.
It's
then.
advancing your game plan or
Yes.
something
Yeah.
then.
Along the lines of Wrath, so I run Grave Pact and Dictate Erebos in my RNK deck. And because I have been through this myself with like a Voltron type deck or a deck where it really revolves around 1 or 2 key creatures, I try to make sure when I play those cards against some opponents, I'm not making it unfun for them because they are running a Rafik Voltron deck, and if I can just continually sack tokens, they're never going to play their commander.
Sure.
And
I'd
that's
be
not
completely
fun.
fine with that.
Well,
It's
yeah,
Rafik.
if it's Rafik, but you know what I mean. It was the first card that came to mind, Chris.
I think that also, like, we've talked about the kind of Grave Pact soft lock before. It really isn't that easy to achieve necessarily. I think maybe the one deck that maybe does make it easy is something like Gave, Garua Spores, because he both makes the tokens and has a sack outlet built in.
And he's in green.
And he's in green, right. So I think in Gave it's easy to do. I think in most colors, though, it requires a lot of moving pieces to get that soft lock going. You need an Ashnod's Altar in play, and you need a way to make, whether it's tokens or have multiple creatures out repeatedly that you can sack and have the great. Like, you have to have 3 or 4 things stick to consistently keep that thing happening. So I feel like that one is relatively easy. I don't want to say that it's not a pain in the butt to deal with, because it is, but I also feel like at some point you need to be responsible for stopping things from happening too.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that one is relatively easy to stop in most situations.
Split second.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that solves a lot of problems.
Yep.
How about tutors? Is there anything you intentionally don't do with tutors or do with tutors?
I don't play too many of them.
I've never seen you cast.
I play the really efficient ones. I think like the most expensive one I ever play is Diabolic Tutor.
Sure, at 4 mana.
Yeah, at 4 mana. Otherwise, I'm playing the Vamp Tutor, your Demonic Tutor. I think I usually only run 3, maybe 4. Or they're specialized tutors.
Okay.
Like
Idyllic tutor.
the recruiters,
sure.
that kind of stuff, where they can only do something specific, even if you are tutoring.
How about, you don't cast a lot of tutors either, Max.
No, I mean, I don't. I think I have 2 in Brago, Mystical and Enlightened, just because I need a way to go get my mana rocks if I haven't drawn them, or a Cyclonic Rift or something like that.
Strionic Resonator.
Yep. That would have been nice the other day. But, I mean, I only run maybe 2 in every deck if I even have slots for them. I don't think Dromoka has a single tutor except for, like, Land Ramp.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm talking like
You're talking like Diabolic
a real tutor,
Yeah,
not
a real
like an
tutor,
expedition map. I don't even know if I would count that.
But yeah, I don't run them either. And when I do run them, like, I go for like an early game for Phyrexian Arena or Torment of Hellfire, but I try not to, unless it's like turn 20, I'm not going to tutor for Blood Bond.
Sure.
Because that's just a not fun move.
Now, let's say you're playing your Grave Pact and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
If you have the other moving pieces set up, will you tutor up the Grave Pact to put them in a lock?
Probably.
Okay.
'Cause
See,
you
I
can
would
win-
do the same.
Yeah.
Well, but also, again, you still need to have the other 3 pieces or whatever.
Yep.
It's not like
Right.
you're playing Machias and you're tutoring for Triskelion just to win.
Right. No, if I have the sack outlet and I have a bunch of tokens and I either need Dictate or Grave Pact, yeah, I'll bust a tutor to go get that, as long as I can cast it that turn.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't have that 4 or 5 mana on top of the 2 to tutor it, no, I'll hold off till next turn, and see if all those pieces are still there.
I roughly am at the same amount I run in my decks that run tutors, and I don't have tutors in all my decks, but the ones that do, it's 2, and I think my Glissa deck might have 3 because of Sidisi. Has a Vamp, a Demonic, and then Sidisi, so I guess that would be 3. But I also, in that deck, but also in most of my decks, I generally don't have cards that I can tutor for that win me the game. My tutors almost always tend to be for either a draw, like Phyrexian Arena, or B, a way to solve a problem. I almost never tutor for something that wins me the game. I tutor for something that keeps that person who's playing the Super Friends deck and has a doubling season out. That's when I go get my way to exile doubling season, or I go get a Wrath because that person just cast Army of the Damned and put 13 zombie tokens in play with Cathar's Crusade out or something.
Yeah, I've caught myself a lot of times in my Alessia deck going Demonic Tutor into Recruiter of the Guard into Stoneforge Mystic and Skull Clamp, go.
Right,
And then
just for
like,
the
I
draw.
just made myself a huge target, but okay, let's do this.
But you need to take it like you went and got a card that's going to draw you stuff. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not winning you the game.
No.
It might win you the game in 6 turns if no one deals with that because you've got a lot of advantage out of it. But no, I think that seems like that's different to me than playing a Machias deck with 7 tutors. So you can go grab Walking Ballista or Triskelion, or playing I'm trying to think what other command zone combo there is. There's playing your Derevi deck and running every tutor so you can go grab Stasis.
Right.
I haven't ran into one of those decks in a long time.
Or playing your Teferi deck and having every way to dig down so you can go straight to Chainveil.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen any of those for the most part in our meta for a while, because I think people kind of get their super competitive stuff out in the 1v1 that people play.
Yeah, that's another thing I try to stay away from is the CEDH decks. Like if I'm gonna play EDH with everybody, I want to play EDH. I don't want to be so competitive with the deck that it just
Turn 3, game over.
turn 3 game over. Let's play
Sure.
another game. I mean, that's just I say I don't take my opponent's fun into consideration, but that's just no fun for anyone in
Sure.
general.
I am in agreement there.
You get cramps in your hands from shuffling too much.
So how about combo? What do you guys have any personal build philosophies when it comes to combo in games?
They better win you the game if you pull it off.
I tend to agree with that.
I like combos as long as they're more to it than just jamming 2 cards onto the field
Sure.
and I win.
I went and grabbed my Zealous Conscripts and what is it, Kiki that copies. I forget. Yeah, Kiki copies that,
Yep.
right? That's Kiki combo. Yeah, those ones that, particularly if it's 2 pieces that are terrible pieces by themselves, and they only work together in an infinite combo. I'm like, why are you? That's always an
That's
annoying
10
way to
mana
lose.
though. That's a lot.
That
of
one
mana.
is a lot of mana. That's true.
I suppose it's 10 mana for Blood Bond too. But
Yep. But yeah.
But the thing about the Blood Bond one, the problem with that combo, or maybe it isn't a problem, is both those cards are good on their own.
And I don't think you can actually interrupt it. Once the
Life starts happening.
Yep.
I guess you could with a
With a split
Croson,
second.
yeah,
Split
with a
second.
Croson grip.
But
you
with
could.
like the Kiki Jiki combo, as soon as Kiki taps, you can kill it.
Yeah, you can respond to it.
Yeah, you need something with split second, whether it's even just sudden spoiling my board so I can't sack something else to gain a life off of like a Blood Artist or something.
Combo's one for me where I don't. It's not even about my opponent's enjoyment necessarily. I don't find it fun to win that way, so I just don't do it. Like it's not like that's one where I'm not even worried about the people I'm playing against. I'm like, it's not fun for me, so I don't do it.
I like combos as like a plan B or C. Like in Regnan Krav, I want to win with hitting people with Krav. That is
Sure.
plan A every time. Plan B is Token Swarm, and then plan C is, maybe a Great Pact lock or Blood Bond lock.
Okay.
They're never plan A in a casual multiplayer format. If this was 1v1 or CEDH, yeah, that's going to be plan A or B, not plan C or D.
See, I also like then you just brought up the Teferi combo, going for like Chainville or whatever. I like that combo with Paradox Engine because at any point in time it just stops.
You can it can be interrupted.
Well, I mean, not even saying interrupted, you just whiff. Like
Sure,
you're
sure,
drawn,
yeah.
and all of a sudden you're just like, well, I just wasted my turn and you're all gonna kill me this turn. Go.
Sure. Yeah, that one definitely can be stopped. And like I said, we've mentioned, a month or 2 back, I had like 2 weeks in a row where I won with a combo in my Vela deck. But those were also like 5 or 6 card combos that just happened to all come together simultaneously. That wasn't something that I could add. You couldn't tutor for if you wanted to.
That works.
How about things that keep people from playing?
Freaking hate bears.
All right, so that's going to
I love
mention
stacks.
I was thinking of cards in particular, but like that's one. So I've seen them in the shop where someone's like, hey, here's my hate bears deck. It's all cards that make it, it's all tax or make it difficult to play. I don't want to do that to people, but also I appreciate the challenge because you mentioned at the start of the show having to play good Magic because that Perplexing Chimera is down.
Yes.
And there are games when that's super fun.
Yes.
And there are games when playing against a hate bear deck like that is a fun puzzle to try to figure out. It's a Rubik's Cube when you're trying to solve everything. But I want to do that maybe one time, and then I want to just goof around and see some cool decks and do some fun stuff. And there are people that don't get that. They're like, oh, this is fun for everyone all the time, and it's not.
Well, and with like a Hate Bears deck or even stacks, you need to be playing the right deck against it to even be
Have a
part of
chance,
the
even have a
puzzle.
chance, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just never going to win with certain decks if you're trying to play against that Gaddock Teague deck.
Yeah. I mean, I actually am pretty okay with like straight up Gaddock Teague or maybe Grand Arbiter. But
At least Teague has an out.
Right.
You can get around it if you've built your deck. Like if you've the generic rules of good deck construction say keep your curve low, that gets you around Teague.
right. But when you build like a Bant Hate Bears deck where you have the best Hate Bear cards across the 3 colors, you're gonna drive your opponents nuts because
And you're going to make it a long, slow game in the process.
right.
Or if you're running 25 counter Baral decks, which we've seen before,
Yep.
that don't have a win condition. What's that? I don't know. I feel like you need to stop and pause. Like, why does anyone want to play against this? Or at least maybe they do one game because everyone's fresh. They've just got to the shop. They're ready to do one game. Some people want to deal with it, but you don't want to deal with it all night long. At least I don't.
No, and I'm sure there's people in everyone's community that are for like a really competitive game,
For sure.
and those are the people that you need to get to know
Yeah.
them, and say, hey guys, I want to try this deck out, but this is going to be an annoying game. It's going to be really competitive, so bring your best deck to
Yes,
play.
for sure. And I'm never gonna want to be the person on the other end of that. I'm not gonna be the one who wants to make people deal with it.
Yep.
I might want to play against. I'm never going to want to play that as my deck. So how about specific cards like Blood Moon or like Back to Basics, those kind of things?
Perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm with Chris. I think both those are fine. I mean, if you have one of those played against you and you need to be conscious when you build your deck that someone might play Blood Moon or Back to Basics, and if you're only running 4 basic lands,
Right.
that's your own problem. I'm sorry, you set yourself up for failure.
I do feel like those in particular are ones that people get mad about, and I always feel like there's ways around it. You can build your deck in a way where, for the most part, those 2 cards aren't that huge of a deal. And if they are a huge deal, you probably are building your deck poorly. The exception is maybe if you're playing 5-color.
You can still get around it with 5-color, honestly.
You still should have a few basics in your deck in 5-color. But it's much tougher there than like in a 2-color deck. If you're playing a 2-color deck and Blood Moon totally hoses you, that's on you. Like,
Are there enough duels to play that?
I mean, or utility lands. Well, you're asking
I
me.
suppose, yeah.
You're talking to the guy who you're just complaining about my Glissa
That's
deck
right,
who had.
Glissa.
And I'm up to 12. And actually, I found my Vela deck was at 10 basics too. And I just tweaked it Tuesday night. When I got home from the shop, I pulled 2 utility lands out and put 2 more basics. So I'm up to 12 in that deck now.
Good.
So I will probably, and I'm going to try to do 2 more down the road, get everything up to at least 14. I think 14's fine.
I think that's perfectly.
And I think 14
Yeah,
you can deal
I
with a
mean-
Blood Moon, for the most part.
I mean, I run 12 to 14 in all my decks.
Yeah.
So,
And actually, I do have a logic for that Vela deck too. So much of the deck is colorless that Back to Basics still will hose me, but a Blood Moon I'm fine.
Yeah.
I can tap those as mountains and I still cast artifacts all day long.
There's a
so-
reason some affinity decks in Modern play Blood Moon out of their board because they're just like, I don't care.
Right, yeah. How about hand hate?
I think in EDH, that's really hard to pull off in a multiplayer format because a lot of it is target player. Yes, there are cards that say each opponent are
Discard,
all
right.
players, but they're few and far between, and you need to be in very specific colors.
I loved it for the whole 3 months that I had Leovold before they banned him on me.
Okay.
It was awesome. I have no problem with it being played against me at all. I think it's definitely a part of the game that really makes it challenging to do anything then.
I can't think of a time I've played against a deck that did it well enough that it was a problem, because I think it's too difficult to do well. But I also don't want to do it. I don't want to play in a game and hit someone for discard 7 and have them be top decking. I just don't want to do that. Partially because that's not fun, and partially because I want you to have a chance to say you brought all your weapons to bear and I still beat you. I think that's part of it too.
I just get to quote Yu-Gi-Oh when I make them draw from top. Be like, heart of the cards!
Dana, you want your opponent to show up and play at their very best, so you can play at your very best,
Yeah.
and then the true winner is
Yes, yeah.
shown off.
And if you want to argue that part of playing at your best is you're going to attack their hand, I buy that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. It's just not what I want to do.
It's too hard, and if you're playing in a 4-person pod, it's too hard to control everyone's hand.
It's also one of those things too, like there's so many variables in Commander. You can account for a lot of them. You can plan for graveyard stuff and you can plan for, but like you can't account for all of them. You can't account for this person's going after my hand, so I need to run ways to make myself hexproof or whatever. Like you just can't, there's not enough slots in decks to run enough things that keep yourself safe from everything.
Yep. Like I would rather play Telepathy, the 1-mana blue enchantment,
Sure.
where everyone plays with their hands revealed. All your opponents do. Because then you're not actually attacking the hand, but you have perfect information as to what could be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. Or even, it doesn't see much play in Commander at all, but something like Jester's Mask or Cap.
Jester's Cap.
Where you're like, I'm playing this token deck. I'm absolutely going to go grab their Doubling Season and the Parallel Lives and the Anointed Procession.
Yep.
And that's perfectly fair to do, I think, to those decks. Because I'm not stopping you from winning with the perfect win condition, but you can still play.
Right.
Eldrazi.
Oh, God, love Eldrazi. They're my favorite creature type. I
I
might play them in Modern religiously right now.
don't mind them in EDH. They are a win con. I mean,
They are.
games have to end. It's graveyard protection to a degree. Are they annoying? Yes, they are extremely annoying. But so is Blood Bond and to some
Sure.
people. So is Blood Moon. There are cards that everybody is going to say are annoying,
Well,
and they don't want to play against.
There's always so that's another thing you should note too. Someone's always going to complain. Like there's always going to be something that's too much. I talk about like I said, I don't want to run more than 6 counter spells. That's 5 more than some people are going to want me to run.
And 5 less than some people are.
Right,
gonna tell you to
exactly.
run.
Like no one, you're never going to perfectly find this balance where everyone's happy.
Right.
I don't run Eldrazi in my decks. I put new
You're too soft.
Kozilek. I had new Kozilek in my Recce deck, literally for the first draft. I think I cast him one time, then it came out immediately, and I've never.
I would rather have newer Ulamog or something that's a removal spell over.
Actually, that's what it was. Sorry, it was
Okay,
new
yeah.
Ulamog because it was before Kozilek was even out.
Yep.
But he was out of the deck before Kozilek came. So like it was in the deck for maybe a month, and it came out, and I've never put it back in. My only beef with Eldrazi for the most part is, number one, I think if you build your deck to cast Eldrazi, they're really, really easy to cast. Every Eldrazi Titan deck I've ever seen is 26 mana rocks and a bunch of colorless Eldrazi. Or maybe they're going to run 25 mana rocks and a bunch of colorless Eldrazi, but it's the same thing, and they're just going to go rock, rock, rock Eldrazi. I don't care. That's number one. I think it's boring to play against. The second thing I don't like about it is the Annihilator ones tend to blow up one person, but not kill them. So you lose your board state or whatever. You're stuck there doing nothing, but you also maybe don't. I mean, I guess you can scoop and leave the pod, but you're not out of the game so far that maybe you're like, maybe I can come back. So then you sit there for 3 or 4 or 5 turns. That's my main beef, is I tend to screw over one person, but not kill that person.
See, my preferred, what I would like to see of an Eldrazi deck, because I'd like to see a 5-color Eldrazi deck, because you have the colored Eldrazi. Then you can go digging deep into the Eldrazi pool, and you don't have to run every Titan that has Annihilator on it or anything. You can do the little shenanigans with Eldrazi Obligator, who has an Act of Treason built in, and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I would like to see a 5-color Eldrazi deck. Also, it would be more interesting than just going, every mana rock under the sun.
Oh, you still have to play every mana because you got to stay on color curve.
That's true. Yeah. So how about things when you pilot your deck that you do or don't do differently? Specific rules that take into account your opponents. Because I'll give you an example from a game that came up this week.
Oh, good. I have one too.
There was a player who must have kept a 2-lander and assumed he would hit something and didn't. And it was like turn 5 that came around, and he's sitting at 2 lands still. And I had, on the other hand, managed to like ramp twice and put down a mana rock. And I had a strip mine sitting there, and he's sitting at 2 lands. And like the optimal play at that point is for me to kill a land. But I'm not going to do that to somebody.
It wasn't me.
It was
You've
not
done
Max.
it to me, though.
Oh, no, I have done it to you.
And that's different. Like I think if you're doing it to your friends because they absolutely know that you are going to just screw them over because you're friends, that's one thing. But like, this is somebody I don't know him that well, and I definitely didn't want to do it to this player.
The worst part about what Max did to me was I had a basic land, 2 signets, and a reflecting pool, and he strip mined my basic land. And I'm like, what do I do now?
That was the correct play, though.
It was.
Theoretically.
It's also you're playing against your friend who's like is going to be fine with that.
He probably beat me the last game anyway, so.
Because I will give you the opposite example of that I always think about. It was in Theros block, and I went to an F&M where we did a draft, and I drafted or had in my pack, whatever it was, a Sylvan Caryatid, which is a 2-drop.
0/3 defender that creates any color
Yep.
mana.
So
It
it's
has
a
hexproof.
mana dork,
Yep.
which was a disgusting card in the set. And Desecration Plague was a card in Theros block that was 3 green to destroy a land or an enchantment, I think, right?
Yep.
I had two or three Desecration Plagues. And the first person I went against after the draft, I won the roll, so I opened with something. I did a turn 2 Caryatid, and he dropped a second land. It came to me for turn 3. I played my land, and I had 4 mana at that point and a Desecration Plague in hand. I go, oh, he's at 2 lands. I'm just going to hit one of those lands. Because that's the optimal play.
Yep.
Particularly when you're playing for a competitive. It's only F&M, but like still, you're playing to win.
Something's on the line.
I don't-
competitive. You get planeswalker points out of that.
Yeah, I don't care if that like at that point I don't.
Mythic points.
I'm not worried about that person having a good time really. So I Desecration Plague does 1 land, pass the turn, he draws, and then passes back because he didn't. He must have kept a 2-lander and didn't. So okay, I top deck a second Desecration Plague. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I hit his land. Like, why would you? Again, that's the optimal play.
Yep.
And he scooped and stormed out of the store. And he actually comes in and plays Commander sometimes, and he doesn't. I'm positive he doesn't remember it's me, because he's always super nice to me in game. But like he was ticked and stormed out and was mad about it. But I would never do that in Commander. I'm just not how I'm not going to screw somebody over for their lands that in Commander, unless it's Max and I'm trolling him or something. Like one of you guys, I might troll and do that maybe.
If I can keep a 5-color deck off their last color to cast their commander,
Well,
I'll do it.
but also that's different. You're not
You're
maybe,
not slowing them down.
You're not keeping them from playing the game. You're just saying, oh, that strategically speaking,
Right.
they're playing the Ur-Dragon. It makes sense for me to hit that land because actually I did that
Take them off a green or blue card draw or ramp.
Yep.
But actually I did that this week. I strip mined someone's only white source when they had. I don't remember what we had saw the card in the person's hand that required a single white source, and I don't remember what it was. If it was whatever it was, that would have stopped me from attacking. Actually, no, that's what it was. He had the ability to activate a manland or something that was a blocker, and I hit his only white source, so he couldn't activate it, and I could swing through for lethal. And that's perfectly fine. I don't mind doing that, but I'm not just going to rob somebody on turn 4, even if it's the strategic thing to do for the most part. So are there things like that you guys intentionally wouldn't do in a game because you just don't want to have the other person have their game go that way?
I don't know if I can think of anything super specific. I mean, this week we were in a game where there was a Mistform ultimate deck on at the table, and she was saying I might actually kill someone with commander damage with this deck finally, and she was going to kill me. I was at 14 Mistform damage, and I had a Path to Exile in my hand, and I'm sitting there like, well, you know what? She's really excited. She's finally going to do something really cool.
It's clearly not a good. It's not a good. It's Mistform Ultimate. It's only so good. Like you can tweak that deck perfectly with the best cards possible. You could be running your Elephant Graveyard in there, spending your $120 in that card, and it's still not objectively a good deck.
Right. So yes, the strategic play would have been no, path it, stay alive for an extra turn. But I was playing Tajik. I was tapped out creature-wise, so the next player would have just killed me anyways.
So why not give her the win with the commander damage win?
So I was like, yep, you got me.
Okay.
And put the hand back into the deck and moved on and played with Chris.
Chris would not do something that nice, you don't think?
No, I would not have been that nice. Any experienced player, I don't care who you are, I hold nothing back. I don't care what's going on. It's no holds barred. Now, new players, I'm going to take an example of Dr. Mike.
Okay.
How we're very lenient with him.
Yeah.
And now it's no mercy. He's got a target on his back hard.
But once upon a time, you would have been when he was a new player. I definitely was with him early on.
Yeah, until he went whatever, Helm of the Host in Aurelia or whatever. I'm like, okay, that's how we're playing these games? All right.
Infinite combat?
Sure.
Newer players, I'll hold back. Let them actually get the feel for the game, be able to play cards, see if they're any good, that kind of stuff. Experienced players, no, you're going down a road with me that you're not going to like at all.
How about take-backs or redos or changes, missed triggers, that kind of thing?
I've been working really hard at not doing those at all.
Okay.
They annoy me now that when people start doing them. It annoys me, especially because it's like, yep, the thing happened. Let's change phases. Oh, wait, no, I actually would have done this. That drives me nuts.
I think in EDH, I tend to be a little more forgiving because the game itself tends to be so sloppy because there's so much going on and everyone's like, I'm just going to tutor this card right now. And you make some allowances for just the speed of the game for four players.
That kind of stuff I'm okay with. But when you go to cast something and they're like, oh, well, the target that you cast it on has Shroud or something like that. Or that's a bad example, but something like that. And like, well, I'm just going to take that back. And it's like,
no.
My competitive side of playing, other formats comes out where I'm like, no, if this were a straight up game as the game was meant to be played, you cast that spell, you have to choose a legal target for it.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the context. Like, is it turn 2 and you miss something? Like, there's not enough information. You shouldn't have not noticed that thing happening on turn 2 versus turn 14 and you just had somebody over with their binder asking questions and somebody missed something. I'm much more likely to forgive something in that situation than I am early on.
Yeah.
Like, don't trade when you're playing a game.
Someone actually said that during a game.
Yeah,
this
someone
week.
did. I think it was Matt, who's one of our listeners who drives over here to play with us every couple of weeks. Matt mentioned that he's screwed up enough games trading mid-game, so he doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah. I guess my biggest thing with take-backs or redos is if you want to redo it and it's going to change the course of the game, no, you should have been paying attention and caught it when the appropriate trigger needed to happen. Don't go back and say, oh, wait, I want to change something. oh no, that's going to change my second main phase because you want to take that back.
Sure.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah, the takebacks where when you do something and the person's like, well, in response, I'm going to do this. They're like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that then, or something like that. That type of stuff will. If I could table flip, I would table flip.
Well, you can. You got enough muscles.
I think if it's like, I played this creature, and you immediately go, oh, wait, sorry, I don't want to do that one. I'm going to play this one instead. That I don't care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if it's, this trigger just happened, and 3 seconds passed, and I'm like, I'll move to combat. And he's like, wait a second, actually, before I move to combat, I'm instead going to do this trigger. That's quick enough, too. I also think how annoying the card is might make a difference. I'm not letting you take Ristic Study triggers that you missed.
Nope.
Because it's an annoying card, and you just need to be on top of it. So that's one I tend to not be forgiving about, things like that. But if you just missed one dumb trigger 3 seconds ago on whatever it is, I tend to let those slide. I guess
I should get like a 3-foot Ristic Study card made. So whenever I play it, I just set it in the middle of the table.
that's not a bad idea.
Ristic Study, it's out. See it?
I think my general rule is I try to hold myself to a higher standard about that than I do anybody else.
Yeah.
And I've heard you guys do the same thing where you miss something and you catch it 10 seconds later and you say, oh, no, I missed it. It's too late.
I mean, it happened this week. I missed a couple like Soul Attendant life gain triggers.
I even stopped to look at you,
You
too,
did,
and
though.
you're like,
Thank you.
yeah, and I'm like, okay, draw.
But I had Regna out, so like I wasn't gonna be like, oh wait, I missed those. I want to gain my life because I'm gonna make some tokens. No, that's not fair to the other players in the pod.
Well, there was one, I think, 2 weeks ago where I wound up blowing a removal spell on a man land that someone animated to block. They activated the man land, and I responded by Source of Plowsharing because I wanted the damage to get through. And then I realized I had a strip. I think the store owner was watching the game, and he's like, you have a strip mine right there. I'm like, oh, come on. But, like, that happened immediately. I could have probably asked to take it back, but I didn't because I also feel like when you punish yourself, it makes you more likely to not make that mistake again.
Yep. I feel it makes me a sloppy player, and I hate being a sloppy player.
Especially because you play competitive Magic.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's gonna bleed over.
Well, when you practice good habits, you learn good habits. When you practice bad habits, and that's kind of what you're doing when you take things back, you're practicing bad habits, you learn bad habits. It encourages sloppy. You're right. It encourages bad behavior.
I feel bad telling people, no, you can't have that back type of deal, but I'm trying to encourage them to be a better player at the same time.
For sure. Yeah, you're not being. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm with you there. Okay. Any other things you guys want to talk about here?
Chris, do you want to bring up MagicFest Madison?
Oh, I will here in a minute. I want to
all
bring
right.
up another thing about what we were talking about. Things that I do differently when I'm physically playing my deck.
Okay.
I love to hunt the player who's the saltiest player in the room, just to flow more salt from them. Like I will single-handedly target them in a game, trying to get them to realize how much of a bleepity bleep they are.
Sure.
So they stop.
I mean, if you're,
I'm one of the people who's just like, I'm a no nonsense attitude. It's like, you can say whatever you want to me and gonna hurt my feelings.
Right. You sit there with the biggest grin on your face the entire night.
if you're a jerk, a lot of the stuff goes out the window then. Like I lose my concern about you having a good time if you're being a jerk to people in the game. And we've talked before. We've had people lie to us what deck power levels or what have you. Mm-hmm. Then I no longer care what you're doing. I absolutely will grab my Edric deck and take 6 turns in a row. Because why not? Because then I no longer care.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you there. I
just had to get that out there.
No, that's good.
Because I love playing with those players because they're very competitive players.
Yeah.
And I love the competitiveness that they have. They just need to tone it down a little bit.
Particularly if they're playing with people they don't know who might not be as competitive. All right. I think that is all we've got on the philosophy of fun. But Chris has something he wants to say about the upcoming MagicFest Madison. That's still 2 months away-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've got some.
It's the weekend of May 10th.
Okay. So almost exactly 2 months away.
Yeah.
Okay, so GP Madison. If you say MagicFest Max, I'm gonna jump over there and slap you. It's GP Madison in my head.
It will
It's been
always
like
be
that for
GP Madison?
years.
Okay.
These mics are expensive. I'm not letting you do that.
Istanbul, not Constantinople.
So we're gonna have something called a Where's Waldo competition.
All right.
So
This is as much as I know. You've told me this part, and that's
Yes.
where my understanding ends here.
So for the first 6 people
For 6 people.
for the weekend,
All right.
who get a picture with the 3 of us separately.
Okay.
So you got to find each of us separately, get a picture with us. then get all 3 of us together for a big picture with you, you are going to receive a Commander Central playmat
Okay.
in a tube that we will take out and we will personalize for you. We'll give you a personalized note like congratulations on the Where's Waldo contest. Your contestant.
Whatever you want.
Yep, whatever. And then we'll sign it for you.
All right.
Make it all personalized for you so you have a memory of going down to Madison to come see us or play with us or whatever else reason you're there.
Okay. Nice. So we're playing Where's Waldo, so you have to find Max and Chris and myself. Now,
Yep.
Chris will be easy. They can just hear you by your voice.
I am going in disguise.
Chris, so you'll be
I'm
incognito.
going to go in disguise. I want to see how many people can find me.
All right.
But you have to wear your jersey.
It's not going to say like squishy and bright green on my back or nothing.
Or the camo one.
But you'll have like the red Bozo the Clown wig on, so you'll be incognito in your jersey.
I'm not quite sure how I'm going to disguise yet because I did think about doing like a huge noticeable afro wig or something.
Nice.
but-
I like it. So I'm sure we will remind people of that as we get closer to MagicFest Madison. GP Madison, sorry. GP
Yep.
Madison.
GP Madison.
Okay. We'll remind everyone of that as we get closer to that date.
Yes.
I'm also going to announce, and this is news to you guys. I haven't even told you.
Uh-oh.
I will not be going to MagicFest GP Las Vegas.
You're not going to Vegas, okay?
I got pre-approved for a house loan today.
oh, nice.
So all
Awesome.
my savings is going towards that.
I
so I can't afford to do Vegas.
completely get it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to you.
Thank you. So I wanted to let you know, let all our listeners know that I will not be able to make.
So have you begun the house hunt yet?
We just got all the notice today, so now it's house hunting
Nice.
Fun.
Very cool.
in the 13 inches of snow we're getting.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Well, I may have some yard type. I no longer have a yard, so I might have. I'll have to look, but I think I have some stuff that I'm never going to need to use again.
Okay.
That might be useful for someone who didn't have a yard and now is acquiring one. So once spring comes around, we'll have to figure that out. All right, good deal. Congratulations on that, Chris.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.